All right, man. So we got some pretty massive news here coming out about current vice presidential candidate Tim Walz. So, of course, Tim Walz was the progressive favorite, somehow also supported by Nancy Pelosi, liked by Joe Biden, but Joe Biden preferred Josh Shapiro. Nonetheless, Kamala Harris choosing Tim Walz. The only thing is, there's no evidence that Kamala chose Tim Walz because of his progressivism. And the reports say that they just had a really good vibe together. And the most important thing for Kamala Harris reportedly was somebody who wasn't going to try to usurp her power. She dealt with the same situation where Biden was paranoid about her usurping him. And so she was kind of shuttled off. She didn't want to have that same relationship. Tim Walz clearly basically just said in the interview, hey, like, I'm just looking to be vice president. That's according to the reports on what happened. But Tim Walz, we had some really insane swing state numbers for favorability, like they're absolutely unfathomable that came out. I had actually done a video about them, but we have this one, so we have some shifts happening, and somehow, I don't know how this is possible, Tim Walz is still surging in these numbers. I mean, it's unfathomable, right? So it says Tim Walz net favorables, August 15th to August 28th. Minnesota plus 15. His numbers went up in his home state by 4 points. In Michigan, plus 14 to plus 16, it's up 2 points. In Wisconsin, plus 8 up to plus 14. Almost 100% increase. This is insane, man. Like Dragon Ball Z, insane, right? So GA stays the same. Staying the same is actually really important right now too, because he's getting more and more media coverage, right? So even if he can just retain his margin, that's a huge deal, because there will be fluctuations in terms of favorables going up and unfavorables going up. So with the media attacking him, they're calling him a communist, Tampon Tim, Fox News, all this stuff. They're going crazy on him. They're going harder on him than they have for Kamala Harris. So even when he maintains his margin, it's a huge, huge deal for him. Huge, huge deal. Then we have an almost double up in Nevada, plus 7 to plus 13. I don't know if presumably, maybe there's some Hispanic voters who are really happy about Tim Walz. I'm not exactly sure, but he's doubling his numbers in Nevada, which is absolutely insane. Pennsylvania, almost a double increase, man. Unfathomable. A near double increase here. We have PA plus 7 up to plus 12, almost doubling. This is crazy, unfathomable numbers, right? So not only is he maintaining as these attacks are happening, he's going up. And then in New Mexico, it looks like he's staying the same, which again is impressive. AZ, he goes down by 1 point. NC, he doubles it by going up by 4 to up 8. Again, remember, NC is a really, really huge state. I think he needs to win, like, they need to win Pennsylvania, NC, or GA to be able to win the election. So you really need to pick up one of those. I think NC is probably lean blue right now because of the poll numbers being really close. And then the fundamentals being what pushes her over with all of the new registrations. There's a Stein race as well, etc. There's a bunch of stuff going on there. Shifting historical trends as well in terms of numbers. So NC is really, really huge. So even you're seeing some help among the Sun Belt where his numbers are going up there too. And then they're basically saying the same in AZ, which again is good. Florida, he goes down 3, which is a drop, but that's not surprising because of the right wing populace of Florida, right? And we know the way that the election has been going. It's been going in the opposite direction, whereas Texas has been trending towards Democrats. Florida has been going in the opposite direction, right? So it's not entirely surprising that this would be the case, but we can see here really solid increases. This is from the Redfield poll. This is August 28, 2024. So this is really, really big for Tim Walz because these are the breakdowns. If you look at Walz's favorability, his favorability has actually kind of gone down in terms of the margins, right? So at this point now, I guess they're not like super far off, but we can see here at this point it's 45 to 40.8, so about a 4.2 margin. That's a very large margin for a national candidate, so still very large. But a lot of these ones will have a lot higher than that. They'll be plus 6, plus 8, plus 8. There's a couple of ones that are kind of random. I don't know why the YouGov poll is like still plus 1 unfavorable. But a lot of these old ones, but even just looking at it from here, these are really solid numbers. I mean, I don't know what that averages out to just looking at these, 25 divided by 3 or whatever that is, like above 7 for sure, right? So with the recent ones, he's actually above 7, just the recent ones, like post DNC numbers, or some of them. There's this Morning Consult one here as well. We can also check his opponent here for Vance. We can see what Vance's numbers are. So these are Vance's favorable numbers. So he's actually rebounded a little bit, but he's going back in the other direction, which is sweet. So he's down about 8 points underwater still, which is a really big number. I don't know if maybe the donut shop thing kind of hurt him. I'm not sure, but you can see that his numbers are going back down 8. It got really close here. It got kind of scary. I was like, oh no, he's making inroads. But his favorability has dropped again. I genuinely am curious as to what caused such a massive drop, because he dropped from like 42 down to 37.6. And his unfavorable is near 50%. So This is a huge advantage. The Fabrizio poll has him at plus 10 unfavorable. If you guys don't know, Fabrizio is a Republican pollster. It might even be like a Trump employed pollster. So it's unfathomable. Even the Trump employed pollster is like, yeah, plus 10 unfavorable. So this kind of a swing is like what, like a, plus 12 or 13 spread or whatever. So it's a really big absolute value distance between them, right? So obviously you have like this massive margin. And then when we're looking at these numbers, when it comes to the importance of these Rust Belt states, the Rust Belt states are actually not looking super promising right now, polling data wise. The Sun Belt, on the other hand, looking pretty good because the Sun Belt gets a big benefit from fundamentals that Kamala Harris has. I'm using fundamentals in my forecasting as well. Crowd sizes, voter registration changes are spiking in places like Georgia. You have a lot of black people who are going to be voting in favor. I think a lot of black people moving into Atlanta still. Demographic changes, historical trends, all looking really good for Harris. Those are not the case in the Rust Belt. So the Rust Belt is kind of a little bit in a situation where it's sort of not really moving all that much. So like in Michigan, she's only leading by 2 points right now, and she's basically been stuck for ages. She was already up above 2 back in even late July, you can see, and she's stuck. She can't get through this. She cannot get through these numbers of this plus 2 lead. She needs to get higher than this. She definitely needs to get higher than this. And so, in Michigan in 2020, she was up by like seven something, I think. And, he only ended up winning by about 2.8. So the polls were off by over 5 points, basically. So she needs to rise. A lot of that error, though, was them missing Trump's vote. So Trump is polling a lot higher in this aggregate than he was in 2020. In 2020, I think he's polling at 43. They missed a lot of Trump supporters. But she needs to be polling at least, I think, above 50. How much of that overperformance impact will there be for Harris in the Rust Belt? That's going to be a key determinant of this election cycle here. But she's lagging. She's stuck, right? Whereas in the other states, she is covering some ground. So with Pennsylvania, she's up 1.2. A 1.2 in Pennsylvania is actually much better than 2 in Michigan because the polling in Pennsylvania has been far more accurate than the other Rust Belt states in recent election cycles. And then, in Wisconsin, we have something really suspect going on. She's somehow up 4 points in Wisconsin when we know that Michigan is more blue than Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania is also more blue than Wisconsin, according to previous elections. What there's evidence of, and we saw this in recent election cycles, Wisconsin's poll were off by 7.7 points. He won by 0.7. He was up by 8.4 on election day. So, and then this is more evidence of Wisconsin polls being bad. We obviously know that, these numbers are... obviously it's not going to be more blue. So that tells us that there's a lot going that's wrong here. So it tells us that Wisconsin numbers are historically unreliable. So she's kind of stuck, in these numbers she's boosting, but she's still been stuck for basically a month, not a month, but 20 days here essentially. She's making ground in the other polls, and then even the aggregators, I feel like it's important to look at the recent polls to look at what's going on. The aggregators will keep numbers, especially post DNC. Really, it's good to look post DNC, and then there's some random outliers where it's a Redfield poll. I can't remember if it was Georgia or somewhere. It's +4 Trump or +2, and then all the other ones are +2, +1, +3 for Harris. And it's all right, dude. Obviously we're gonna take that out. But I say all that to say, it's probably going to come in clutch for being able to win the election in the Rust Belt because it's coming so close and she's not really making any progress. She's stuck. She's making progress in the Sun Belt states, but not in the Rust Belt states. So how much can his numbers going up by 5? Maybe if they don't show up in the polls right now, maybe if he gets touted more, maybe on election day, how much can these things help? But so that's why these are so important. Wisconsin going up by 6, for example. Michigan going up by 2. Pennsylvania up by 5. Huge number shifts. So Tim Walz getting crazy numbers in Rust Belt states, and just in general in swing states, really crazy numbers.